So today I will be dissecting a cow's eye. I'll be pointing out the different accessory structures and the internal structures of this eye. I will briefly describe the structures as well as the functions. Okay, so now let me go ahead and just tell you guys what the different materials that I'll be using for this dissection. Right here we have the Cow's Eye by Carolina. And as you can see, this is the eye. Then we have this plastic tray that I'll be using as a dissection tray. We have some gloves, some napkins, alcohol spray, some goggles again, dissection scissors, tweezers, and a lab manual along with some more information. And over here we have the cow's eye, and as you can see that surrounding this eye is this quite pink, almost white as well, loose adipose tissue. And the function of this tissue is that it helps keep the eye within the bony socket, and it also acts as a cushion to protect it from any possible trauma. Okay, you can also see here that there are some quite brown spots over here, and these are the extrinsic muscles of the eye. And again, these extrinsic muscles in the eye help with eye movement, whether laterally, medially, superiorly, or inferiorly. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and cut out these loose adipose tissue so we can then see the fibrous layer more better. And before I move on, I really wanted to show you the extrinsic muscles of the eye. And you can really see the muscle fibers of the eye. So now I'm going to go ahead and just cut these off. And then we'll have our fibrous layer. And I really do want to note something that I noticed. So if you can kind of see over here, you can really see how that the extrinsic eye muscles attach to the fibrous layer or the sclera of the eye. And you can just really see how it just connects in that region over here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I find that cool. So let me go ahead and now describe to you some of the structures of the eye that you can see on the external surface, okay? So over here, okay? So now that, okay. So as you can see over here in the background, we have all of the muscles and fats that I did my best to cut out. Okay, so this is it. I tried to cut out as much fats and muscles to the best of my ability. So now I'm going to go ahead and just describe to you or point out to you, identify some of the structures that you can see. So over here, you can see the remnants of the optic nerve right over here, this right over here. And again, the optic nerve carries the electrical impulses from the eye and towards the primary visual cortex of the occipital lobe of the brain. Okay. Then over here we have the fibrous layer. It's pretty smooth, and when you press it, it does feel like one of those stress balls. And this is known as the sclera. Supposedly, the sclera is white and opaque, but essentially it is important in maintaining eye shape as well as some attachment points for the extrinsic eye muscles. And you can literally see over here some remnants of the muscles that I cut out just right over here. And this just really shows that these extrinsic muscles attach to the sclera. Okay, and now we have the cornea. It's kind of crushed, but the cornea is another connective tissue that is continuous with the sclera, right over here. Okay, and so this cornea is supposedly translucent or clear, and so whenever light hits the cornea, it actually refracts, because the cornea is one of the light bending medium of the eye. And just a note, the cornea is supposed to be avascular, meaning it does not have blood vessels. So it gets its nutrients from the aqueous humor in the anterior chamber of the anterior segment of the eye. Okay, and we'll get more into the aqueous humor once we cut through the eye. Okay, so this is pretty much all of the fibrous layer, and now I'm going to go ahead and create an incision right over here and just cut it open and show the division of the posterior segment and the anterior segment of the eye. I'm just going to go ahead and just let me find a soft spot over here, maybe over here.
I'm going to go ahead and just cut right over here. Let me find a more tougher spot. That is too soft. Give me right over here. Okay. This is hard. Yes.
Okay, I finally made a hole. Okay, after many juices came out. Okay, so now that I've made this quite tiny incision, we're gonna go ahead and just cut through the sclera, just like that, and then cutting it upwards. Okay, now I understand why Miss Ella said to cut as much fats out, because this is pretty hard. Okay, just let me go ahead and just keep cutting. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now after finally cutting it, ooh, wow. So here we have the eye. Wow. Okay. Okay, let me go ahead and just grab my tweezers real quick, and let me go ahead and just show you, okay? So let me go ahead and just show you. So we have over here the posterior segment of the eye. Again, one of the landmark is the optic nerve. So this is the posterior segment of the eye, and this is the anterior segment of the eye. And you can see, oops, over here that we have the vitreous humor. Okay. The vitreous humor is this kind of jelly-like substance that helps maintain eye shape, okay? Again, this is located in the posterior segment of the eye, and it is another light-bending medium, okay? Before light finally hits the retina, okay? So let me just go ahead and just scrape out the vitreous humor. Just, ew. You know what this feels like? This feels like aloe vera. does feel like aloe vera. So I believe I scraped out as much. Oops. Oh shoot. Oh my gosh. Okay. And so over here, we can see in the posterior segment of the eye, we have this tan looking membrane, and this is the retina. So the retina consists of different photoreceptors of rods and cones. So rods are specifically for dim light and have very low levels of visual acuity. However, on the other hand, we have the cones, which sees color vision and have high visual acuity. And again, in terms of the location of the cones and rods in the retina, the cones are, you can say, exclusive in the fovea centralis of the macula lutea, just to the side of the optic disc, and around the periphery of the retina, those are where the rods are, okay? And so you can see as I try to pull this, the retina seems to bunch up over here, just right over there. And so this is the optic disc. The optic disc is also known as the blind spot because as the axons of the ganglion cells exit out of the eye through the optic disc, there is some kind of, you can say, hole in the fundus which lacks photoreceptors. And because there are no photoreceptors, we can't really perceive or receive, or no, rather transduce light into electrical signals because, again, there are no photoreceptors. However, our brain can compensate for this blind spot by just filling in the image. So, yeah. Again, the optic disc, the axons of the ganglion cells will exit out of the optic disc through the optic nerve to the optic chiasma, the lateral geniculate nucleus, towards the primary visual cortex of the occipital lobe of the brain. Okay? Okay, so that's enough about the retina. Then over here, we can see there is like a lot of black pigment on the side of the wall, and this is the choroid layer. So the choroid layer is essentially one of the vascular layers of the eye, and the choroid layer contains many blood vessels that provides nutrients to the eye. In addition to having blood vessels to provide nutrients for the eye, it consists of melanin pigments which help absorb light to decrease any possible reflection that can create any visual noise, unnecessary visual noise. So that is the choroid layer. And you can see here this very nice reflective turquoise aqua blue. It's really nice. I really find it fascinating. This is the tapetum lucidum, and it's not seen in the human eye but can be seen in animal eye. And the function of this tapetum lucidum is for night vision. It reflects light at night, and it allows the animal to be able to see its prey or to also see predators and try to survive. Okay, so that is essentially the posterior segment of the eye. Now going into the anterior segment of the eye, you can see this very huge bulby structure over here. This is the lens. So let me go ahead and just grab it out, take it out. Eek. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, before I take it out, okay, let me just talk about the lens. So the lens is supposedly this flexible structure. Right now it's kind of hard because, you know, this is preserved. But anyways, the lens is this structure, this flexible structure of the eye. It either stretches or plumps up in response to bending light appropriately, so it focuses on the retina. Okay, and so the lens is attached to I'm not sure if you can see it, because when I tried to pull it out, right, it's quite attached to the ciliary zonules, and the ciliary zonules are like the suspensory ligaments, that when it's relaxed or taut, it contributes to the stretching or plumping of the lens. Okay, and so these ciliary zonules are attached to the ciliary body. So let me go ahead and just take this out. Oops, sorry. So I'm not sure if you can see it. There's some quite striations over here, and this is the ciliary body. And the ciliary body consists of like ciliary muscles and ciliary processes. So the ciliary muscles are the ones that would contract or relax and affects the ciliary zonules. And when it contracts or retracts, or contracts or relaxes, it helps contribute again to the lens shape and allows it to focus light on the retina. Okay, so again, these are the ciliary muscles, and as I mentioned, there are ciliary processes, and the ciliary processes are responsible for filtering blood plasma so it can create the aqueous humor in the anterior segment of the eye. And again, the aqueous humor is responsible for intraocular pressure, as well as also providing nutrients to the cornea and to the lens. Okay, we can't really see here because I probably took it out as you've seen me, but yeah, as you've seen me taking out some of the jelly-like substances, but that was the aqueous humor. Okay, then we have the iris over here. The iris is over here, and the iris consists of two smooth muscles. They're the dilator pupillae and the sphincter pupillae. And like the ciliary body, they contract and relax, but this time, instead of affecting the lens shape, it affects the pupil diameter. So the pupil is right over here. You see this? This clear translucent hole over here. So the iris will dilate or constrict in order to control the amount of light coming into the eye. And again, these are controlled by the autonomic system, whether the sympathetic or the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, what else? So as I mentioned, here we have the cornea, one of the light bending apparatus, the lens, one of the light bending apparatus as well, in addition to the aqueous humor and the vitreous humor. Okay, so how do we see, right? How do this cow eye see? Okay, so light would enter, or actually just go through the cornea. The cornea again is one of the light bending apparatus, so it refracts the light, goes to the aqueous humor, another light bending apparatus, and most importantly, we have the lens. So the lens, depending on the distance of the object, would either flatten or widen. Okay, and then it goes to the vitreous humor and hits the retina. It creates some graded potentials in these photoreceptors, whether the rods or cones, then sends these electrical impulses to the bipolar cells and creates action potentials with the ganglion cells. Then the axons of the ganglion cells carrying the action potentials go through the optic disc, out through the optic nerve, to the optic chiasma, when applicable, through the lateral geniculate nucleus to the optic radiation, and finally the primary visual cortex, which is processed for seeing and associated with some memory, so we are able to interpret properly what we are seeing. Okay, so that is basically the eye, the fibrous structures, the vascular structures, the retina structures, and many of the important aspects of the internal chambers, how light goes through, and that's basically how we see, okay? So that is all for today's dissection. Thank you for listening through, and now it's time to clean up. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and clean this mess up. I'm so sorry, Eye. Thank you for allowing me to understand the eye. Okay.